Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Dripping in gold? That's cool. Dripping in Velveeta's supremely creamy golden cheesiness? That's respect. Elevate your drip with Velveeta's range of outrageously delicious dips and dishes. Shells, cheese, melty blocks, and heat and eat queso that go all in on indulgence. Flex on your fam with a creamy, cheesy masterpiece and go all in on what you love with Velveeta. Respect the drip and satisfy your cravings. Bring home the drip with Velveeta.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Coming up on this week's United Rugby Rewind, we preview the South African Shield teams in this year's URC. Will the Stormers find their poetic play? Will the Bulls' brutality finally pay off? Will the Sharks continue to shock us? And will the Lions absolutely deliver this season? Hang around to the end and you'll find out where we predict everybody finishes at the end of the season. So let's get into it. You're listening to United Rugby Rewind. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the United Rugby Rewind with me, Lee G, and joining me as always is Ben, Alan and Caelan. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How's
Good
things?
evening.
Now, I say good evening because it is evening, so we're recording this on Friday night, which is just before South Africa, New Zealand on Saturday, and we would record it on Sunday, but Caelan's got like a S Club 7 or a Steps reunion to go to or something like that.
I'm not going to comment on this, Lee. Move on.
So, So what we're going to do is we're going to kick off tonight by having a quick conversation about Saturday afternoon, knowing full well that by the time you guys hear this on Monday morning, it's all gone, done and dusted and all of that kind of stuff. But I think we're all looking forward to it. It's going to be a good game. So, Alan, let's start with you, mate. I mean, tell us how big this game is for South Africa.
This is basically our Christmas. I think every year playing the All Blacks out of a World Cup year is a massive deal for us. So really excited, playing at home, playing in Johannesburg. So the first game is going to be absolutely huge. And we've had a pretty good run against them over the last couple of years. The only thing at the moment is obviously the All Blacks are in a bit of a rebuild phase. So that's probably might help us a bit, but we've also got a couple of injuries in the locks and stuff like that. But I see Russ is up to his old tricks again, and he's moved Eben Etzebeth onto the bench for this game. So hopefully we've got this one in the bag. I do think there's potential for a 1-1 draw in the series. Obviously we're leading the championship. So we've got 10 points and New Zealand have 5. So it's a good start for us. Hopefully we can basically almost tie up the series in these next 2 games. So really looking forward to it.
And you get that kind of feel when you look at South African rugby social media, because I believe there's other stuff happening in South Africa this week. I just can't find any of it. That's the only thing I can find that's happening in South Africa this week. So, what about you guys, Ben and Caelan? What do you think? Looking at it from the outside, so it's not necessarily one of our teams, but then we've got the URC connection, which Alan is absolutely ramming down our throats. By the way, absolutely that
100%.
Rightly so.
We're cousins now. Come on, guys. I'll back all of you. when it comes to the Six Nations. We're all against. None of us are England or France. Come on now.
So, well, what do you guys make of it? Ben, let's come to you first. So, what are you making of this weekend?
It's a game that jumps out. You look for it in the calendar, don't you? And I think what I really like about how they've done Rugby Champs, quite similar to the URC, is that you play both home games. Now they have that sort of home and home sort of structure now, don't they? Which is really clever. And I think the All Blacks, like Alan said, in a bit of a rebuild, they had that awful, opening game against Argentina, got revenge on the following week. Then they've got a fallow week, and then now go over to Joburg. I think it's got all the hallmarks of a fantastic game. I think looking at those starting 15s, it's as strong as it gets. I think from both sides, they're not going to pull any punches. It's going to be frenetic. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be aggressive. And I'm just really excited to watch it. It's on at a good time for us tomorrow. 4:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday. It's going to look like the weather's going to be good. So yeah, really, really excited. And then the following week, it's just 2 Saturdays in a row, which is going to be fantastic rugby for everyone to watch, I think. And as a neutral, I don't think it gets better than South Africa, New Zealand, to be honest. Always look forward to it.
It's got kind of a feeling of a British Lions tour, isn't it? Where it's everything's bang bang quick. So, Caelan, what do you make of it, mate?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this game that I'm not going to get to see. Which is our lives now. Have to dedicate time for our own teams, and then hope you see the rest. But no, look, it's if last year's World Cup final is anything to go by, it's going to be brutal test of just sheer physicality, all that kind of stuff. I think New Zealand is a funny one because I'm still very unconvinced by them. I was unconvinced by them at the World Cup. I know they bet Ireland, but I think if Joe Schmidt's not there and doesn't scheme up the perfect game plan for 85 minutes against Ireland, I don't think they get the job done. Razor, look, you can break dance, you can do whatever, but can he break dance at altitude is the question. And probably tip towards South Africa. I've tasked with covering the Stormers later, and I'm going to talk about a certain SFM, if you know who I'm talking about there. I think he's going to be crucial. No Pollard, no LaRue, even Etzebeth. Surprise, he's on the bench. Who, we definitely didn't see that one coming. But I think it's going to be good. I'm not going to nail my colours to the mast too much. I think South Africa, but at the same time, New Zealand's record of getting 1 win per year against South Africa is eerie, and I'm sure that's one of the things that would hold a couple of South African fans like Alan back, because that's just what they do. They're like shit in your shoe. They just don't go away.
So I'm going to pull you up there now, mate, where you're going. You're not going to nail your colours to the mast, because we can't pass the opportunity by without making some sort of prediction that somebody can listen to us on Monday and go, you guys haven't got a clue, which I'm quite used to because I do this every week on the Rap podcast, and I'm notoriously poor at I predict the Scarlets to win every week for one, which you kind
says
of
it all.
Yes, it's everything you need to know. So let's do some predictions. So I'm gonna kick off. I'm gonna go 28-18 to South Africa. I think everything. I think all the stars are aligning. I think it's we're heading down that way. There's a bit of a rebuild. I think we'll see glimpses of what New Zealand can do. I think we'll see little bits of why can't they do that for 80 minutes. I just think South Africa are going to overpower them, which is something that just doesn't happen to New Zealand. But I think that's going to happen tomorrow or 2 days ago when people listen to this on Monday. So yeah, I'm going 28-18 to South Africa. So Caelan, you're not getting away with it, mate. Nail your colours to the mast. Let's have a prediction.
I think there'll be a lot of talk about scrums, and I can't speak for my other co-hosts, but I love a good scrum, and I hope there will be good scrums in this game. I think it's going to come down to a lot of small details in which I would back South Africa. Set piece being one of them. I think their attack is in a better position. I think their defense in a better position right now. Excited for the matchup of young 22-year-old Sasha Feinberg Gomezulu against the old one, the great 10s we've ever seen, Abode Barrett. Even though he's a fullback, he is in unbelievable form. But I'm going to go South Africa 23-21. And if I'm right, that means I'm not going to get a single prediction right for the rest of the year, because I'm notoriously bad at them as well. So here's hoping.
Cool. Ben, what's your prediction?
I'm going to fall between you and Ken. I think South Africa going to win by 4. I think similar reasons you've laid out. I think they've got that strength there. And I just look at that front three, you know, Oxenche and Benambi and Franz Malherbe, and then who they can bring on to replace them. Quagga Smith is just a terrier. He'll come on, you know, 55, 60 minutes in and just is a pest at the breakdown. I've never seen someone just so tenacious at the breakdown. For someone of his size and his stature, he's not a big guy, but he's so powerful. And he can go anywhere across the back three. It doesn't really matter. I think he just comes on and just gets around the park and just pulls strings for the forwards. I think Andre Pollard's going to have something to say about the last 15, 20 minutes. I think it might come down to a couple of penalties from him because his accuracy is unbelievable, I think. And he always seems to come on, do something. I think he has that ability. You know, we've got there is a young 10 in there. Is his debut this weekend, Caelan? Is that?
No, he
No?
started the first. He made his debut against Ireland, didn't start the second test, and started the first two Rugby Championship games.
Right. Okay. So this will be his fourth cap then this tomorrow, then, isn't it? So
he played against Wales as well, I think, actually. That was his debut, actually. Yeah, sorry.
Grand. Okay. So yeah, I think I just look at that squad and it just screams like just strength and tenacity. I love the All Blacks. I love watching them. I've always loved watching them. But I think they're in a bit of a reboot, and I think it's going to take a hell of an effort from them. And there can't be any errors. I think South Africa can probably, you know, not have to play 9 or 10 out of 10, whereas New Zealand will have to have a 9 or a 10 out of 10 performance in order to win. They've just got that little bit less in that tactical nous and experience, I think. And I'm going to say 17-13. I think it's going to be, I've got a feeling it might be low scoring with the altitude. It's always hard with the altitude to play that expansive, wide running rugby. So 17-13 to the Springboks. I think Andre Pollard will score the last 6 points. I'm going very, very specific here. I realise that, but
if that comes true, I'm getting you to predict next week's lottery numbers, man, because that's incredibly specific. That is.
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
Yeah. So that's three of us all going for South Africa. Alan, I mean, what are the chances?
I think it's going to be, but notoriously games at Johannesburg are quite high scoring. So I'm going to go give the Springboks 35 points. I'm probably going to give the All Blacks something like 27. I think the reason for that, I think we are going to leak points. I think Eben Etzebeth not starting. He's one of our defensive organisers, and Peter Steph du Toit is playing lock. So what that means, he's more tied up in the scrums. He's not going to be able to get away and go around the breakdowns quite as quick. So he'll be second, third breakdown. So the All Blacks will have a chance to hit up early. Sacha Feinberg and Gomazulu. He hasn't really had to deal too much with his defence at the moment. But what the South Africans do have is pace. They've got scrum halves and wings, interchangeable. Their bench is rapid. I mean, it's probably one of the quickest Springbok teams I can remember, pace-wise. So we have to see how it goes. But a little bit concerned about the lock situation because we know how much South Africans love scrums and line-outs, mauls. So hopefully we'll score lots of points. But I do think the All Blacks will score some. So I'm going to go with 27-35 to South Africa. But very stressful. Very, very stressful.
I can feel that in your voice already. So this is going to go out on Monday. So if that game ends up as one of the most boring matches on the planet with 3-3, and it's raining and it's coming in at all sorts of angles and all of that kind of stuff, people are never going to listen to us again, guys. So
it's going to be quite cold there tomorrow. It's going to drop to 9 degrees by kickoff. So I don't know. That's not the best conditions to play in, and there is a chance of rain. So.
Mate, you're from Scotland. It warms up to 9 degrees. So
that's right. Yeah, fair play. So summer highs of 9 degrees Celsius.
Exactly. Yeah. A balmy. It made double figures.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on to the South African Shield, the South African teams. I mean. Given that conversation we just had about how good the national side is, it's not really that surprising that pretty much all of their teams are stacked with talent. So, Caelan, let's start with you and the Stormers. So, give us a rundown of where the Stormers are and what we can expect from them this season.
Yeah, I'm going to start this with a little bit of a story, a bit of fiction, just to get things going in line with what I was saying a few minutes ago. So picture this, you're a Cape Town native with a strong affinity to rugby, which, let's be real, that doesn't narrow it down in South Africa. They all have a strong affinity to rugby. But one day you decide to go on a walk, like Forrest Gump, you just keep walking. It becomes a pilgrimage at some stage. You find yourself battling brave blue-tinted bulls, ferocious Johannesburg residing lions, tall stags on their holidays from Limerick, and so much more. Overcoming the bulls was easy. Those pesky stags left quite a mark on you, of course, and never forget the Warriors up in Scotland last year. No one likes to be derailed on their home turf or derailed again. However, as the proud Cape Tonian that you refuse to waver. Do not give in, you hear, as a Schalkberger-shaped cloud guides you towards the west. Like the Star of David, it pushes you to bishops rather than wise men. A sign is painted across the door, enter at your own will, but beware. A new king has been born. You enter, like you should. The school has been known to produce rugby talents, and this intrigues you. Then you reach a cul-de-sac. Rather than directions, it offers you a riddle. A blank wall with no paintwork bar the letters SFM and the number 10. You pick up the phone, you ring John Dobson. Hey Dobbo, I found the missing piece. The future is now, and his name is Sasha Feinberg Gomazulu. And this is where I want to start my Stormers chat, because for me, despite the fact that the Stormers have Manny and they have Damien Willemse, I think Sasha is their present, their future. I think he is the one that is going to lead them back up the table this year. Now, I will caveat this entire conversation by saying we don't know when they get their box back. It mightn't be until round 7. It might be later. It might be Six Nations time. But I have a feeling that the Stormers are going to come back bigger, stronger, better this year. And when I say bigger, they've signed Stephen Kitsoff, certainly a bigger man than most of us here, I feel like. JD Schickerling, who is definitely a bigger man than myself. And Dave Ewers, who would make 3 of me if he could. A real power forward in every way. Now, they have lost Hakshiva Daimani. Don't get me wrong, unbelievable player, but he's probably the only player that they've lost that I think, oh, that's not ideal. And I think that's a great position to be in. I will say, I haven't looked at the other sides. I haven't looked at the Sharks or the Bulls or whoever they lost. I know we broke the Kirtley Aronson news after we recorded last week. But I just look at this Stormers squad and there's not a position. Sorry, there's one position that I would be fearful of. The rest of them, no. Prop, I think they're fine. Second row, brilliant. Back row, I mean, like Dion Free is going to be out injured, but Evan Roos is in there. You got the likes of Ben Jason Dixon if he decides to play. The back row, Dave Ewers has come back in there. They're good at scrum half. They're good at out half, as I mentioned, with Sasha and Manny and Damien Willemse. Centre is fine. Back 3 is brilliant. My only concern would be hooker, and as Alan will surely get into later on, South African teams, they love the set piece. They're a set piece first team. It's the way rugby should be played. You know, when it was given to us by the gods many years ago, you start with the set piece. And I have serious concerns about Joseph Dweba. To put it mildly, if I asked Joseph Dweba to land a rugby ball on earth to win him the lotto, I'm not sure he is. Like, God love him. He is the throwing equivalent to Manny Libok, who, unfortunately for the Stormers, is also on their team. But I am really positive about the Stormers. I seen them last year in Thomond Park on what we can now coin a South African summer's day. It was cold and it was winter day, or sorry, Scottish summer's day. It was cold and winterly and wet. There was one South African kid in front of me who, to be fair, was louder than half the rest of the terrace, even though he'd only a jersey on and it was pissing rain. But I've big hopes for the Stormers this year. And I really think it lies. I like John Dobson. I like their squad. I think they're the deepest of the South African squads as of right now. They've got the best away record. I think this is crucial. If we're going to judge every other team as their litmus test is how good are they in South Africa, we have to do the same the other way. And the Stormers are the best team on the road. So I think they have a really good chance of contending come the end of the year.
And it's interesting that the first game of the season, 2 derbies in South Africa. So South Africa start, with their derbies. So we're going to find out who the strongest South African teams are pretty quick. And the Stormers are kind of similar to Leinster in that you expect them to deliver, do you? You just always expect them to deliver. And where did they come last year? Where did they end up in? Fifth.
So they didn't get a home.
Yeah.
They didn't get a home tie. Yeah.
Yeah. So you take any Welsh side and you'll have a disappointing season, but you'll come in 5th, and that arm is snapped off, and we'll go, thank you very much. Yes, we'll take that. If you're a Stormer, coming fifth is, that's a bit of a kick in the nuts. So there's got to be some kind of rebound this year, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
their quarterfinal, their quarterfinal against Glasgow last year was a Manny Libbok masterpiece in playing terribly. Like, he was awful in that quarterfinal. I think he missed all his kicks, 4 kicks, which, and they would have been ahead if he'd made them at the point at which he'd missed them, I think, off the top of my head, because Glasgow scored 2 tries very late
Did
on.
you make the first one? And you're like, okay, that'll calm the nerves. Wasn't that no?
I think I've got a feeling he missed the first 4. I can't remember.
Oh,
He missed 2 in the first half and 2 in the second half. Then Glasgow scored that really, really odd try when the Stormers tried to run it behind their try line, behind the post, and then I think their centre it was intercepted by, I think it was George Horn off the top of my head, dropped down, or someone, maybe one of the replacement centres came on. Can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it was the epitome of just really messy play and not being able to contend with the rain. And George Horn knew how to kick at Scotstoun. It's his home ground, but Manny Libbok just turned up. And
I think that's one of the issues with the Stormers. I think that is one of their issues, is they like free-flowing rugby. And I think there's almost a resistance to change that game plan.
But the flip side is, like, in year 1 of the URC, they were probably the most, not limited South African team, but the most accurate South African team.
Yeah.
Last year, obviously got to the final again in year 2. Last year, I think they were probably the most wasteful, to be honest. Like, they had all the talent. They had some unbelievable performances, but, like, take the Sale game in Europe, for instance. They scored 30 points. They looked like they're going to kick on. Just decided to have a revolving door defense. It was a really weird season for them last year, wasn't it? And I know I'm positive about it, but because I backed their coaching staff and I backed their squad, but last year just kind of felt like a bit of an enigma. And I think potentially we'll just see that be fixed this year. You hope it be fixed. Like, obviously want to see every team do well, bar Leinster. But hopefully they do. I said nothing, man. I said nothing. But hopefully they do fix it. But again, to your point, like, they were really wasteful at times, weren't they? And, like, even your own Lions were probably the most efficient. Every time they got a chance, they looked like they were going to score in some of those games. The Stormers, I think it kind of started in 22-23 towards the back end of that season. It just looked so wasteful. In Galway in round 17.
I think the mistakes that they were making, I can't. The fullback, he was making so many mistakes. Like, he was so erratic. And if you don't have a fullback who's confident at kicking or in the rain, his name escapes me now.
Warwick Gallant, no.
So who? Sorry,
Warwick Gallant.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, that's it. I wanted to say Warwick Gallant. He really erratic at the back. So now your players, and then like you said about the hooker, if your lineouts are going all over the place and then your fullback's not up to scratch and the kicking's not working, like, what are you going to rely on? What do you need? You need your kicking, your maulings, lineouts. You need those to be rock solid, and you need a fullback who's solid. And then if you're going to go overseas, and I'm surprised that the stat that they've got overseas is as good as it is at times, because they do struggle. There's no question that they do definitely struggle,
No, that they've the best. Now, they mightn't be the best against every Shield. They're definitely the best team against Irish provinces away from home. They've drawn with Leinster, lost by score to Munster, score to Leinster, won in Galway. Like, they've done really well on the road in Ireland. But it is that sense of silly mistakes just hold them back a lot. And I think sometimes, I think you could put it down a small bit too. They were so good in year 1 and year 2. They might have just been expecting it to kind of start to click, and then you start to force it. Like, ultimately, they won a final by a kick of a ball. They lost a final by a kick of a ball, essentially. They're both one-score games. Maybe there's that pressure that they put on themselves. And, like, you look at the La Rochelle games, the 2 games played against La Rochelle, both went down to the wire, both went down to Manny Libbok. It's hard to look at him and Joseph Dweba, and even someone like Evan Roos, unbelievable number 8, and think you're the guys to bring me forward, because we just can't rely on you sometimes. That is an issue. But I still think that's the most talented South African squad. The Bulls, we'll get onto them in a minute. I can't trust the Bulls. I cannot trust the Bulls. Not when you're, 2015 All Blacks, when you play in Pretoria and you play like fucking St. Mary's College of Dublin when you play outside Pretoria. Like, I just can't have that. the Stormers for me are the ones to watch.
See, and I think that's part of the issue with South African sides as a whole is playing away, because so many games are played away, obviously, and how you cope with playing away defines your season. When our mantra in Wales is you win your home games. So win your home games, and that's you're gonna be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. That used to be it. Now we just win a game, and then you're heading in the right direction.
Win one game per month, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's your target. But for South African teams, that away kind of the away form is just vital. Otherwise, you're fighting against the wind all the time. So anyway,
literally in some cases when you come up north and you go to Glasgow or you go to Galway, it's literally fighting against the wind all day.
You imagine you're coming from Durban, and you leave and you're on the beach and you go, well, there's the planes here, boys. Okay, I'll just topping up my tan. Okay, and it's 35, 40 degrees or whatever. Okay, I put my shorts in, I've got my sunglasses, and I'm on a plane, and I land in Galway, and then I'm gonna go play Connacht, and I'm like, you couldn't. Nah, I'm back. I'm on the plane. I'm going home. There's no way you're doing that. And we were talking before we started about the sheer difference in geography between South Africa and the rest of it. And it's a big challenge. It is a big challenge, but not for the first week, because our first week, Stormers are playing the Bulls. So we've had the Stormers side of it. Ben, give us the Bulls, mate. What have the Bulls got for us this season?
Tries, and more tries. I mean, you look at the top 5 try scorers of last season, and 4 of them are Bulls players. Aka van der Merwe, David Creel, Kurt Lorenz, Canon Moody, 32 tries between them, I think, last season. The only person at the top side is Johnny Matthews, the Glasgow hooker, who, the way that Glasgow play, it's always going to be forward scoring for them most of the time. I thought, they left it all out on the pitch last season against Leinster, and they just didn't have enough to play Glasgow that following week. I think the general point I make about South African teams is that I just really, really, really like that they're in the URC. I think it's fantastic competition now because of the advent of having those 4 South African teams in, dangling the carrot of giving them European rugby as well, so they don't have too many fallow weeks. I think the URC have been really generous in terms of when they come over. They only come over 3 times a year for 4-week stints. I think 3 or 4 week stints, then go back. I think the first season they got it wrong. I think it was a bit too stop-start with them flying over and flying back. So I think they've kind of developed a structure now that gives us South African teams the best possible chance of, making the most of their away trip. So it'd be interesting to see how they go this year with the 3 legs. I think they come over to the UK until UK and Italy to the 12th of October. So I think it's at least the 4th or the 5th week of the season that they come over. So they get the first 3 or 4 weeks there, and it gets them all their box back, and then they can obviously start to think about the away fixtures. But I like the Bulls. I like their kit. I think going through their team, they've got 2 very, very good 10s, Chris Smith and and Goosen. Goosen was absolutely fantastic last season in the knockout rounds. I think he scored the vast majority of their points in the semi-final against Leinster, and then he kicked quite a few points against Glasgow in the final as well. David Creel, unbelievable player. I think I watched a couple of their games through the knockouts, and just his speed off first phase ball off the base of the ruck is just unbelievable. He goes inside, he goes outside, he'll go himself. He pulls off some ridiculous passes. He's just got that insane capability of opening up any defence at any point on the pitch, I think. And having we don't know what's going to happen with KLA, Kurt Lorenz, this season, when he's going to go over to Japan and when he does go, but it looks like he's obviously playing tomorrow. I think he's in the squad. I think he's the starting lineup tomorrow. So he's another very, very good player. Canon Moody, seems to have come out of nowhere, just straight into Springboks team at a very, very early age, and seems to be very dominant in the backs as well. So I like their team. They just have that strength to them, and I really like the kit this season. I think they seem to get it right every year. They just have that really cool kit. That Puma sponsor, the brand looks good, the pattern looks good. It's a shirt that if I was a Bulls fan, I'd be pretty happy to buy every season. Can't say that about every kit, but yeah, that's where I stand on the Bulls, and I think they'll be top 4 again this season. I think they've got a very good chance of going to the final. Jake White, very good head coach, and I think he has both roles. He double hats as the director and head coach. So got a lot of control over the side. And again, being in Pretoria any time of year, playing at Loftus with the altitude, it's really, really hard to go there and win. And Glasgow pulled it off last year, but did anyone else win? Maybe did one of the Welsh teams go over there and randomly beat them? I can't remember last season.
Munster won in Pretoria.
Munster, yeah. But it's a very, very difficult place for anyone to go to and win. And I think we've got them week 2. Edinburgh have got the Bulls in Pretoria away. So, yeah, I think, again, a very strong team. And I think they'll notch up 12, 13 wins like they did last season out of 18 and be top 4. Probably, at least semi-final. I think that would be my prediction with them this season.
Yeah, week 2, Edinburgh visit the Bulls, and it's week 4 when they all fly over. I reckon that's so that they can just save money on they can just hire the one aeroplane and just put them all on and go, right, we'll just have the one plane and we'll drop half of you in Italy and then we'll just dock you around and in 4 weeks.
Interesting, they all fly via Doha, don't they? I think there's not.
Yeah.
They don't seem to take direct flights.
There's a contract obligation for them to go to fly via Doha and do like sponsorship events and that kind of thing. So that is a necessity because they normally fly with them. That's the official flight partner. Just an interesting side note on what you've just said, Ben. The Lions are playing Edinburgh in week 3 as well. So there you go.
That's the toughest. That's the toughest one because it's 2 games at altitude.
Yeah,
and we've got Leinster first up on the Friday, so the opening 3 games are, and based on, we'll go into Edinburgh, whether it's next week or the week after, but we had such a poor end of season. I just have a bit of a fearfulness about the opening 3 games. We actually went to South Africa game week 2 and game week 3 2 seasons ago and lost both those games, but we had a fairly easy first game. I think it was against Dragons. We gave them a bit of a pasting at home, so we went there with a win, but I don't know. I think we could be 0-3 after the first 3 weeks, and that's not somewhere you want to be if you're aiming for top 8. So, yeah, I just love. I repeat myself, but I just love having the South African teams in the URC. It just gives it that sort of element of difference. Every week, the styles of rugby are different, and it's difficult for South African teams and South African fans because you obviously have that commitment to the Southern Hemisphere, the Rugby Championship, and I understand that. But I think in terms of the best domestic competition, I think it's extended journey time, but the lack of jet lag makes a massive difference to anybody. Jet lag is, no one's immune to it, irrespective of your level of fitness or your mentality. It's a problem, and it was always a problem for South African teams in Super Rugby going to New Zealand and then going to Argentina and then even going to the Sunwolves to play in Japan. That's the travel involved is outrageous. So I think the URC is the best place for them.
And don't forget the precious TV revenue as well. Getting the UK guys in at 4:00 for a game, most of the South African games are either the Friday night game and then that's your weekend done. You're watching games from early afternoon.
Yeah,
really,
consistently,
really
the most watched non-interpros in Ireland have been Ireland against Irish provinces against South African teams, because I think it's the fear factor too, as well as that. Like you go down to South Africa, a good tour of South Africa is 4 to 5 points. Do you know what I mean? Get 1 win out of 2. You're doing well. You're at home to them. It's a win. You're not thinking, oh, easy bonus point, whatever. But just to bring it back to the Bulls, and I do agree with most of what Ben says. The one caveat I'd have is, yes, they've got the backs. Yes, they can play ball, absolutely. But I still think it comes down to the fitness of Marco van Staden, Ulrich Lowe, and Marcel Coetzee. Ulrich Lowe in that semi-final against Leinster, unbelievable. Like, he was unstoppable that day. He's brilliant in those edge channels, so disruptive. We know what Coetzee can do when he gets going, although he is starting to slow down. Understandably, he's into his 30s now. And Van Staden is just such a typical South African blindside. Like, he's as tough as nails. He's just a square. He's a cube of a guy to go up against. Hits hard, carries well. And I think they're so important. And then you got guys like Ruan Nortia, for instance, who I'm a big fan of.
And Cameron Hanekom as well. He's also
Hanekom as well. I don't know if we're allowed to mention him on a Welsh run podcast, but they do have the talent out wide. Don't get me wrong. The Creels, the Moody's, the Aronses, Willie LaRue. I think Willie LaRue is the most important back out of them all. That game against Leinster again, because that's the
his kicking that day was unbelievable.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. And I go back and forth on Goosen. I think Goosen is good, but I think he makes an awful lot of stupid errors as well for a lad of his age, without being too disrespectful there. But with the Bulls, yeah, I'm not sure how well they can travel. I've said that before. But I just look at that back row, Lowe, Van Staden, and I could say and Hanekom, as Alan mentioned. That is elite. And ultimately in a league, how many games is your backs going to win by themselves, or your 10 or whatever? Your back row is going to keep you in every game, most of the time, especially in rugby. Although, referee interpretations is what gets thrown out by the losing commentary team, but we'll leave that for another day.
I think you make a point about Coatsy. I think Coatsy, I first came across him when he was at Ulster, and he was just a powerhouse for them, and he really kind of pushed them forward. And, that semi-final against Edinburgh in the COVID season, I think he was unbelievable at Murrayfield. And I think it was Ian Madigan, that, evergreen, who's now retired finally. He's been a bit of a journeyman. I think he's been around three of the out of the four Irish provinces, and a couple of
just the two, but yeah,
just the two. But yeah, but he was a journeyman. But he's that day, Marcel Coatsy was just you couldn't get near him. He's just winning everything, jackling everything, and ripping the ball up, and he's just one of those unbelievable players. LaRue again, evergreen player. Had that, like you say, Keelan, that game against Leinster, that semi-final, his kicking was just, I think he might have kicked a couple of 50-22s as well. He just has that unbelievable.
Had he two in the first half alone, I think, or at least one of them was just had to be kept in. It was.
He's just got that flat kicking style, but he sees it and he'll change direction. And some of his age, I mean, he was brilliant at Wasps when he was there, and before, and I know he left the Wasps before he went into administration. But again, one of those South African players is more than happy to go around the world and play his rugby and play his trade. And it's just another player, and he's got that. He looks professional, but he's got that gob on him as well, as we saw in the World Cup last year when he wound up being the players. Which I'm always happy to see. And I'm sure
wouldn't be too hard though, would it, Ben? Like, we could have this conversation in February. It's not that hard. Exactly. Jamie George was once called a fat and went to the EPCR about it, but that happens on every junior rugby sideline in the world.
Yeah, exactly. It does indeed. And sometimes you just have to grin and bear it. And if you let it affect you, then that's your problem, not the oppo, isn't it? So yeah, but I fancy the Bulls this year, I think. Especially in that lovely kit.
Okay, so gonna move on from the book. I mean, when the Stormers and the Bulls is kind of like that's peak South African rugby. So that and that's the start of the season. That's your opener. That's the one we're looking at. And yeah, you think when you're starting with that as your first game of the season, that's a pretty good way to start the season, isn't it? I mean, and the good thing on that is after week one, at least one of those sides isn't going to be in the top half of the table. Do you know what I mean? And you can take a screenshot of that after we.
Could be a draw.
Yeah, it could be in there. Yeah, that would be very South African. So okay, let's move on to the Sharks. Before we move on to the Sharks, guys, if you're listening to this and you're enjoying it, please do rate, like us, and subscribe. It really makes a difference to what we're doing. We've got loads more stuff to come. So next week we're going to do the Irish sides, then we're going to do Scotalia the week after that, and then we're into the season. And Ben's going to do a 3-hour stint on his own about shirts, while we all have a curry.
Can I join him? I bought the Munster Heritage, the retro shirt recently, and I think Ben might just be gobsmacked if I wear that for the podcast.
Please do.
Well, all of that's coming up, so please, do subscribe and like, because it does make a massive difference to what we do. So I'm going to move on to the Sharks, but before I do, I'm just going to do this for you guys, because it doesn't actually fit when I've got my headphones on, but I have got a little bit of Shark Tank there from that's genuine from the Shark Tank. That is my boy went on tour to South Africa 2 seasons ago. And so you can, when your kids go on tour, you can give them a card and you can see what's happening, and literally all you can see is the Shark Tank. And well, he is in South Africa. I kind of know where he is. I'm hoping that's the shop and not something that they do down on the beach. So yeah. So anyway, Sharks. I mean, I don't get the Sharks. I don't understand everyone I've spoken to, everyone I've gone, look at the squad, look at who they've got, look at the names on the sheet, and tell me why that team doesn't win? How does that team end up below the Scarlets last season, but then still win the Challenge Cup? Do you know
I
what
went
I
to
mean?
that game. Yeah, and they were fantastic. Yeah.
But how can they turn up for that one game and then just go, do you know what, the other 15 or 16 through the season, not that bothered? It confuses me. I wrote down a whole 15 of international players. They got rid of 15 players at the end of last season. Werner Koch gone to Ulster, Hyman Andrews to Sale Sharks. Yeah, so the rest of the players that they released, you'd kind of go, okay, maybe not. So they obviously had a squad there that was okay-ish, but lacked depth. But that front 15, when you look at that front 15, Etzbeth, Bongi, Leach, and now we've got Hendricks brothers, Bobby. How does that not win at least half of their games through the year? It confuses me, and I've seen them play, and you look at it and you go, okay, they got some big players, they got some hefty. And I was looking at some of their stats, and you look at it and you go, well, he can't be that big, because how can you be that tall and a prop and 20 stone and run 40 meters in 5.5 seconds? That's not a human. That's a Hulk sidestep. It's just bizarre stuff. They've got massive people. They've got huge players that are skilled and talented international players, and they just cannot turn up for the URC, and I don't get it. So yeah, is that going to change this year? Well, 15 players out. Okay, that's a hefty amount out of the squad. 9 players in, by my reckoning. The name I looked at there's obviously Jason Jenkins I spoke about before. He's not a small chap. He's got a little bit of oomph about him. And then Hendricks is again the guy that you look at. And Esterhazen as well.
Was Khaleesi on there? There's rumours about him going back as well.
Well, that was going to be my question as well. Is
I don't think that deal is going to happen. Sorry, my mic down beside me. I don't think it will. I don't know if they can find the cash to justify signing a guy who, don't get me wrong, Sia Khaleesi could run for president in the morning and he'd win on a landslide. But you're talking about a guy who's basically going to only play half the season, and you're already only in the Challenge Cup, not the Champions Cup, of which you won't have home game. Oh, sorry, they are in the Champions Cup because they won it. Sorry, but they're probably not going to go far in the Champions Cup. They mightn't have any home games by the time. Might only play one home game of the Champions Cup. I don't know. And it's Racing. It's Jackie Lorenzetti. He's not going to say, go on, I'll do it for, a box of cigarettes and, a braai. It's not going to happen. So I just don't see that happening.
Well, the latest I can find on it is that the deal is off for exactly what you said, for the money, but the intention to bring him home is definitely there. But like you say, what's the point? And maybe that is the issue with the Sharks. You've got so much talent. You've basically got a full international 15 there that you'll only see for 50-60% of the game.
Maybe less than that.
Yeah.
To bring up the home advantage point again, and I'm not saying any team in South Africa has less home advantage. They arguably have the least home advantage. Durban is typically the easiest place of the 4 to go and win, and like that. Not saying that that's like eating into them or anything. It's not eating into them or whatever, but still, it's a factor.
And maybe we can excuse or reason out some of the other South African sides being difficult to play in because of that. But you've still got 15 international players that should be on the pitch more often than not. And for some of them, you got 2 international scrum halves, 2 international hookers, 4 international centres. it's not light. These are decent teams. The one area where they are light is back row, and that isn't something that you say very often about South African sides. But massive front row, huge second rows. But back row, maybe that is where the issue is. But they brought in quite a lot of new young people coming through. Look now, George Cronje. Apparently, he's half decent. He's a number 8. There was a guy who's playing open side as well. He's meant to be quite nifty as well.
The Chitsuka brothers both play there. They both play for the Lions. They're very, very good. Emmanuel Chitsuka's gone over there from the Lions, and he's a very, very good player. His brother underperformed over the last 2 seasons, but they do have the players. They just need to get the consistency. And it's something similar to what Kalen said. Errors about the play, like basic errors. And I don't know if it's a philosophy thing with a New Zealand coach, or maybe just they don't feel comfortable playing at home or comfortable playing in the humidity, because it is an unusual place to go and play rugby. Definitely, it's completely different to any other place in South Africa.
I looked at the stats just now, and they were just to pick up on what Kalen said, they were 0 for 6 against the other South African teams. All 3 home games, all 3 away games they lost. The only 3 home games they won all season was Edinburgh, Dragons and Scarlets, I think, off the top of my head. Ulster, I think they made 1 away to the Scarlets, and that was it for the whole season. So, to go 0 for 6 against it, that's all right. The only away game that a team that didn't really perform winners against is over in West Wales. But to go 0 and 6 against the other South African teams with that strength in their side is baffling, because like I said before you started talking about them, is that I did go and watch them at Tottenham Stadium. It was a great experience to go and watch rugby in a football ground, because the new Tottenham Stadium is fantastic with the Kop end. It's single tier, and the noise you get in there is fantastic. And quite lucky I was sat with more Sharks fans than I was with Gloucester fans, so obviously I was there kind of semi-supporting the Sharks. And the performance they pulled out that day, Adam Hastings, he's gone back to Glasgow, but he had a bit of a rough ride at Glasgow. Gloucester didn't really work out for him, but he was nullified that entire game, 65 minutes, and not really been able to do anything until Gloucester kind of got a couple of tries at the end to put a bit of a gloss on a pretty damaging game for them. They didn't really show up at all. Even Etzebeth, Werner Koch, they just marauded around the pitch that night, and it was always in control. And it's just, you see what was going on the season up to then, and it was bizarre. It was really bizarre, because they've fallen away. They were 5th in the first season, they were in 8th, and now 14th, weren't they? And it's just a massive drop, and it's bizarre when you see a squad of that strength, and like you say, could field an entire Springbok 15 if they were relied upon on their own. And
I think the most disappointing thing with it is that when they announce their sides now, I can't use we're going to need a bigger boat. It just doesn't work anymore, because people go, nah, Sharks crap. And so, I've got to find a completely new way of replying to Sharks sides. So the last bit we kind of touched on it, is the coach. Is that where the issue is? And at what point do the Sharks turn around and go, okay, cheers very much and toodaloo? And I think that if they come back from that tour of Europe, if you want to call it that mini tour of Europe, and they haven't won a game, I can't see Plumtree staying beyond that.
Have you seen his coaching history? His coaching history is a bit potted, to say the least, isn't it? I'm just looking at it now.
He went to Wellington. He came from Wellington, didn't he? And they had the worst Super Rugby season for a New Zealand team. And then he was with the Sharks before that.
Then he had a stint at the Hurricanes 1 season, and then he's been at North Island. So he's not really had a big team until he took the Sharks over last season, in probably about 10 years. It looks like at least 10 years, barring the 2019 Super Rugby season with the Hurricanes. I don't think the Hurricanes had a great season in 2019 off the top of my head. I didn't know anywhere near the top, the semi-finals or finals of Super Rugby. So, yeah, when you've got a bit of a potted history about that, you always kind of fall in the slight negative. Like, what is it? It's more of, you think the angle is the problem me rather than the squad at that point, because a coach with a good pedigree would have only been at 3, 4, 5.
He does have an affinity with the Sharks. I think he's got some history there. I think his son not been in the academy or played there for a bit. He may have had a game or two for the Sharks when he was
Not
younger.
9-year career, he was there. Yeah, he was there
Yeah, and he
quite a
also
while,
won.
yeah.
I think he won the Curry Cup with them. And in South African circles, that will lock you in for quite a while.
Two
So,
Curry
and
Cups,
when he won it, I
1990,
think
96.
France, Stain, and all of them were still playing. It was an amazing team, and I think he beat Western Province in the final too. So I think that will lock you in for a long time in South African circles. Then he left. I think he went to the All Blacks as well, and then he came back. Yeah,
So he's been assistant of the Steve Foster, by the looks of things, 2022 ended up. So that sounds right, yeah.
So that's my kind of rundown of the Sharks. That's the only place that I can see them really improving this year is coach. And I'm being a coach myself, and it kind of, that sounds a bit shit. It's your fault, but the players are there, and that's the only.
I might jump in, Lee, as devil's advocate. I think the players are there, but I do wonder what their focus is sometimes. I look at this squad and I'm like early on in last season when things weren't going their way in URC, they were almost checked out. And it's almost like that old cliche about the Premiership. Oh, no relegation, so teams don't care. It's not necessarily the case, but when you have so many Springboks, for instance, and even Etzebeth's the prime example, are you going to try and get up and play well in February against, say, the Dragons at home when realistically you play 6 out of 10 and still win the game? Or are you going to wait and you're going to play well right before the Boks are back? And I'm not accusing them of only caring about one thing or not caring about their club or anything like that. But I don't get the sense of them that they are the most ambitious team that is really striving to do something that I think you could say for the Lions in particular. Obviously, very different pay packets and things like that. But I just get the sense it's right, we'll just see how it goes. And maybe that is leadership, but that's also on-field leadership as well. Realistically, the Sharks should be at least a URC semi-finalist at this stage, at the very least. But they haven't. Leinster wiped the floor with them 2 years ago. The year before that, they lost to who was it? Was it the Stormers in the first year? Or the Bulls? I have no idea.
I
It was
can't
one of
remember
the two.
that.
It was one of the two. But it was I think they lost it in South Africa if they made the playoffs at all. That's just not good enough. And yes, that possibly is coaching, but some of it is on the players as well. I actually would nearly like to see where would the Sharks be if they didn't have the high profile internationals, the Arms, Mapimpi's, Etzebeths, and spent that money on a couple more depth players. Even if they took out Bongi, if they swap Bongi with Dweba, you swap Etzebeth, I know they got Jenkins with Nortia, and so on and so forth. Would they be a better URC team? Arguably. It's a weird thing, but rugby is weird in that way that club players can be twice as valuable sometimes. And I think the Sharks could be one of those teams.
Yeah. Well, speaking as a side that just scraped a couple of points above the Sharks, I really hope we don't find out this year. I really hope they're just as crap this year as they were last year and gives the rest of us a chance. Yeah. So I'm fully expecting quite a fair bit of abuse from Sharks fans this week off the back of that. But most Sharks fans that I see on social media kind of agree that they should be in a better place. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes through the season. So okay, the team, the underperforming team, the side that needs to deliver are the Lions. And if we look closely on Alan's left breast, we will see that fine. There it is. See, there we go. That's really good for the audio, that is, isn't it? So, Alan, give us a rundown of the Lions, mate.
Okay, so I think the big three things for the Lions is obviously the pack. They've got an amazing pack who are together for most of the season, pretty consistent. They don't give away many penalties. They know how to play with each other. The second thing is obviously home advantage. Big plus for them. It's never full, so it's empty. So it must be the crime rate around that area, low from the other teams. And then finally, Sanele Nahamba. He's our magic man, so to speak. He's been there. He came from the Sharks, and he started out at scrum half, and now they've moved into fly half. So he's one of our top performers. And then for this season, we've had quite a few, for the first time in a while, we've had quite a few Springboks. So now the players are aware that they can actually make it to play for the Springboks. So that should help. But then again, could that be a drawback? Would they be calling those players out of the squad to go and play for the national team? Maybe that would have an effect, because our scrum half, Morne van der Berg, he's pretty good for us since he's arrived as well. So it's always that balance, isn't it? Like, your players get good enough to play international rugby, and that's exactly what they go and do. And then you've left without those players for a number of weeks throughout the season. But obviously, we all know that playing in Johannesburg's tough. I know that they've worked the pack. They've cut down on their errors. They've got a coach that knows the team. We have had a bunch of retired players, and we had a few go to the Sharks as well, like Hendrickse and Chitsuka. Willem Alberts is retired, so they've lost a few players. But I think they'll finish higher than they did last season. I think they'll probably get into the top 8. So let's give them like 8th or 7th place. I'm pretty optimistic for the season, really. We need to be realistic about where we are financially as well. And then I fully expect a couple of those players to move on at the end of the year and go and play for some of the bigger franchises in South Africa.
The Sharks, perhaps. I think it's nearly always the Sharks.
Maybe. Some of the Bulls as well. They like going to the Bulls or Japan.
But in all seriousness, though, why can't the Lions just hold on to, because they are the bit of the breeding ground for everyone else at some point. Why can't they hold on to
I think one of the reasons is where they're based is a very, very, like, it's not a very desirable area. There have been conversations to have the stadium to play their home games in a smaller stadium closer to Wanderers Cricket Ground, which would be about 20,000 seater, which has got a lot more people and traffic going through it. Ellis Park is not the place you want to go spend your Saturdays. When you are with your family, you're not going to drive into the middle of Hillbrow and go and watch a rugby game in Johannesburg. It's much more likely that the guys would go to Pretoria, which is a much safer area, and go and play at Loftus. So that's one of our biggest issues. And then I think as far as the money goes, the Bulls and the Sharks have obviously got the biggest backers. So they tend to get the players tend to move there as a general rule of thumb. And then obviously they go overseas as well. So we normally have our players for about 2 or 3 years before they move on. You only need to look at like Faf de Klerk, Malcolm Marx, Mostert. They all played for the Lions, and they've all had to move on. We had 3 good years getting to the final of Super Rugby, and then all those, they broke that team up. And then we've done now the URC. We don't really get to that level before they get filtered out as well, because it obviously puts a lot more South African players on the stage, the world stage, for other teams to come and pick them off. However, on the flip side, we do get a lot of players from, like when you're taking players into the Sharks, a lot of the Sharks and the Stormers players come and play for the Lions because it's kind of their last chance saloon, I guess you could say. So we do get like a lot of those players. I think Lowe, the captain who plays in the centre, he came from the Sharks as well. So there are players there, and they've got a very good academy. And there's a couple of players who were surprised not to make the Springbok setup in the last. Henko van Wyk, their centre, he picked up quite a few injuries. And there was the 8th man, the lock North Angle. We all know Klabekanle. He's a fan favourite. The prop, JC Pretorius, he was a 7th player who plays for them. Pretty good. And then we've got the Ruan Strali, and I'm just trying to get so Henko van Wyk. So they do have good players. They've got the Creel brother as well, the Jaco Creel, who's the brother of the Bulls player. He's also pretty decent for us. And we have Edwil van der Merwe, Ruan Venter. So they've got very good players playing for them. It's just about keeping them together. But the fact that we've got a few Springboks now should bump us into the top 8. So I'm pretty optimistic about that.
So where did they finish last season? Was it?
I think they finished 9th.
Yeah.
They should finish above some of the teams, and they've got a pretty easy start. They start off playing the Sharks in Durban, then they've got 2 home games, and then they play the Dragons in Wales. So you'd like to think they should be able to get at least 3 wins out of those games, and then take it from there, really, because you kind of have to break the season up into quarters, don't you? So you go by quarters and then see how you go in your blocks of 4, especially with the traveling. Try and break it up into blocks of 4 and then take it from there, you know.
I think the thing is now, though, that there isn't really an easy fixture now. You know,
I think we're optimistic when playing the Welsh teams. I think the Welsh teams struggle.
Cheers for that, boy.
No, it's in South Africa. I think we're a lot more optimistic. We thrashed Glasgow. We thrashed, granted, a second string Leinster team. When you come to, we pick up a lot of bonus points in Johannesburg. It's now just a case of getting our act together. And we had a few good wins overseas as well. It's just about beating the teams which are just slightly around the same level as us. So we're looking at teams like the Ospreys, who finished one above us. And that could have been gone either way.
You know, like really shocked Connacht in Galway, like down to 14 men. The abiding memory is that Edwin van der Merwe try and he went full ash splash on that one. But I think that's exactly it. The games around the teams around your level, because realistically, and maybe I'm disrespecting some things, I think there's a clear top 4 or 5. I think it's Munster, Leinster, Stormers, Bulls, Glasgow, and probably Ulster. So what's that? Maybe 6 teams. And then there's about 7 teams who are, well, I'm high on Ulster this year, and I'll get onto that next week.
I'm going to challenge you. I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Just be careful what you say, that's all. But then there's about 7 teams who are all very close to each other, realistically. When you think of the Lions, you think of the Ospreys, you think of Benetton, Connacht, you think of Edinburgh, you think of even, you know, Cardiff, if we mentioned last week, if they get a couple of things go their way, the Sharks should be better. And I think that is, like, games like that, going to Galway and getting a result, turning over Leinster when you have them at home. I don't know how you got on against, say, the Ospreys, for instance, last year, Cardiff, but like they're massive. You talk about the relegation 6-pointers in the Premier League soccer. That's what those games feel like. And for the Lions, the more of a habit they can get into of beating teams like Connacht, beating teams like Benetton, doing it at home, doing it away, is huge. And they did show strides. Like they absolutely, like they weren't just this flash in the pan team. Nohamba just does some magic and then they concede 4 tries. It wasn't that last year. It was really, really good play. Scrummaging, I think they were second best scrum in the league last year by all metrics, behind only the Bulls. And that is a good base point to go off.
In addition to that, just looking at the table, the Emirate Lions finished with a points difference of 128. Ospreys who finished above them, minus 35.
Joint top with the bonus points as well. They had 14, 8 and 6. So, and they won 2 games less than Edinburgh and still finished above us. So, I think it was just a couple of wins. Yeah,
that's what makes this league so exciting and so interesting.
It's the advantage of 18 games, isn't it? The fact that it's a little bit shorter. That, like, even when it used to be the Pro 14, you got every team home and away. There was no kind of discrepancy. Whereas now, as we talked about with Edinburgh earlier, they've got the toughest South African trip because they got the 2 games at altitude, and that makes a difference compared to, say, Munster go to the Stormers and Sharks, and they're both at sea level.
And the time of year matters as well. Yeah. I think the URC has that. The strength of schedule changes every year, right? With your home and away fixtures, alternate. And I know last year they kind of didn't go completely opposite to the year before. They did a bit of restructuring, didn't they? Because I know Edinburgh
they're going to take in 2-year blocks, I think. Yeah.
And it reminds me of the NFL with that sort of that rotation goes around depending on where they. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but depending on where they finish, dictates who they then go and play the following season. So every year you will play the same teams, but it will just be in a slightly different order. And I think, like you say, each season, the way the fixture is structured has a massive bearing on where you'll end up. And I think, with there being only 18 games, every game matters. And, apart from the bottom 2, which I'm going to say are going to be the bottom, same as last year, I think 14 upwards is a toss up between 6th and 14th, I think. And I said, that's the rump of the competition. That's every game matters. And I think, getting 5th to 8th, I think is going to be the 6th to 8th, I think are the 2, the 3 key positions, which I'd be hard pressed to bet on it, on which 3 teams will end up there next season, because I think it's changed every year. Those 6 to 8 teams, you just don't see the same teams there, and I think again it just shows the advent of the competition, how strong it is, and how exciting it is to watch. And there's no dead rubbers, which is always pleasing.
But I'm going to say that goes right the way down to 16, because even traditionally Dragons and Zebra at the bottom, but it wasn't that long ago that Benetton were also part of the whipping boys.
Yep.
You know,
Mhm.
it was a little bit longer ago, but Connacht were just they're the fourth Irish side. They kind of they're the easy ones.
The Ospreys had 1 or 2 awful years there
Exactly,
before
yeah.
COVID.
And it can turn round, you know, it can absolutely turn round. And that's what makes it so competitive and so good. You know, there isn't a weak side there. There's just a couple of sides who might not be awesomely strong as some of the others. And yeah, that's for me. When you start looking at it, or we did Wales last week, South Africa this week, and you go, actually, you know, everyone's in with a shot. Even the sides that we go, you know, like the Sharks, they shouldn't have been down there last week. Even you look through the Dragons lineup and you go, actually, that should be, you know, a good 4 or 5 places above where they are, and you know, it's gonna be an awesome season. I can feel it in my waters. Well, that might be a curry, but it's gonna be an awesome season.
It's a Lions season as well, isn't it? And I think that
Yeah.
matters. I mean, obviously the Lions aren't going to South Africa next year, which would make it doubly interesting. I think if that was all those players would then be playing, you know, themselves over an international series, whether it was, you know, playing for their province, whether Stormers playing the Lions like it was in 2021 before the 3 tests come up, or South Africa A, which was an unofficial 4th test. We all know what, you know, Razzie was up to with that pre-test test. I know they're going to Australia, but again, whenever there's a Lions tour coming up, I think players just turn up that notch of performance. And of course, you know, 3/4 of the teams there have, you know, their clubs have got, you know, Lions eligibility. There's only really 6 teams out of the 16 that don't. So, yeah, I think
players will invariably get injured at the end of the season on Lions years more than usual, which is cruel, but it always happens.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for that, gents. Time is beating us once again, so we're going to wrap up our South African preview with a quick once around the table again, and we're going to predict where our sides are going to finish. I'm very well aware that we've completely forgotten where we said our Welsh sides were going to finish last year. So let's just forget about last week.
I'll start a spreadsheet.
I was doing it. I was sitting down just before we were coming on air, and I went, right, okay, and then we'll finish with the predictions. And I went, crap, where did I say we were going to come? So yeah, let's forget about last week for now.
The top 4 is still available. I know that. I think.
So right, let's start with the Stormers. Caelan, where do you think the Stormers are going to finish at the end of this year?
I'm going to go 3rd. The Stormers. I'm high in. I can't deliver that speech and then say like 7th or 8th. So I'm gonna go.
It was a very good speech.
I'm gonna go 3rd, and I'm not gonna beat Ben to it, but I'm gonna have his Bulls in 4th. So just that's like it's a coin toss between them two.
Okay. So we're going Stormers in 3rd. So Ben, are you going to accept Bulls in 4th?
No, I'm going to go 2nd again and finalists.
Ooh, 2nd and finalists. See, that's throwing it down now.
3 finals in 4 years. I'm going for it. Yeah, I think they've got.
And they lose them all. Anyways,
just like the Lions did in Super Rugby 3 years in a row. So you know,
that's right.
How that
love that.
Yeah.
Crusaders twice and the Highlanders, wasn't it? I think off the top of my head. Yeah.
When was the last time Edinburgh were in a final now? Because I know the Scarlets, Munster, and Lions have all been.
The closest we got was the COVID season and Ian Madigan, that 3, and otherwise we would have gone to Leinster and would have lost anyway. But yeah, I think it was a Challenge Cup final now, wasn't it? Quite some time ago off the top of my head. Can't remember, but yeah, not in recent history.
Overdue. Let's just
overdue.
We'll agree it's overdue. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say Sharks are going to have a shit start to the season, sack the coach, and have a fantastic second half of the season, and are going to finish in 7th. They're going to finish top half. They're going to scrape it in a season of 2 halves. Is how the Sharks will proceed. So, Alan, Lions.
I would like to think they'd get into the top 8. So I think I gave Ospreys 6th or 7th last week. So I would like the Lions. I'm going to be like optimistic, but I'm going to be fair looking at the competition above them. I'm going to give the Lions 8th. And then I think they're going to have to go and play Leinster or the Bulls.
But
that's still a successful season for us. I'll take that.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time again this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. So next week we will do Irish provinces, where Caelan will tell us just how good Leinster are, and the other three of us will just say how overrated Munster are for about an hour or so.
Sounds like a very weird dream. That's like a real when you got the sweats kind of dream. That's what that sounds like.
So we got that coming up next week. So join us again for that. And in the meantime, thank you very much and enjoy your rugby. Good night. That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can. And join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Power up fall projects with Ego at Lowe's. Every tool delivers power beyond belief. So whether it's leaves, limbs, or lawn cleanup, count on Ego to deliver the power, performance, and innovation you need. And now, for a limited time, save up to $60 on select blowers, chainsaws, and pole saws. Shop Ego today at Lowe's. Offers valid through 10/1 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.